A successful, wealthy guy can change a broke woman's life, and they do often.
All the time.
But a successful, wealthy woman will never look a broke man's way. Poor with money, broke bitches. So, this already from my videos, but I'm well versed in financial services and instruments from my past businesses. And when women are bad with money, it's often serious trouble. If she's an adult and doesn't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of, then she's not even to be considered for a long-term relationship. There's a small caveat to this, which I'll explain in a moment. I've seen far too many men trying to play Captain Save-A-Ho, bail out women with horrendous debt and terrible spending habits. Despite the lie feminism told women that they only earn 75 cents on every dollar a man earns, women have every opportunity to earn a good living today, and they do. Yet women still continue to choose careers that pay less than men, while going deep into debt by overspending. Ultimately, if she can't manage her cash flow and has nothing but a pile of handbags and a shoe collection to show for this debt, avoid her for anything more than just a casual relationship, because she will make her financial problems your financial problems. I've had a lot of consults with guys that have paid off women's student debt, bought women's children from prior relationships a car for college, paid for their college tuition, paid off their credit cards, bailed out a lot of women that have financial hardships. And I can tell you from my experience running my debt business for the years that I did, it was almost 20 years. A lot of the clientele that we had come in were mostly the gals. And when they were a couple, we'd often get their credit reports. Sometimes they were refinancing. There might have been a private mortgage that was included in the deal to pay off the debt, sort of thing. And you'd always see the exact, like, hypergamy is real. Okay. Like 98% of the mortgage applications that I saw, when they have to state where they live, what they do for a living, proof of income, all that sort of stuff, the guy makes substantially more than she does. Now, again, we live in a world today that, we hear all the time in the media that, there's a shortage of marriageable men for women today. And there's a lot of professional women that can't find men of their caliber or higher. Because again, women want to date across and up. They don't want to date down. So it functionally prices them out of the dating market. And they often find themselves as spinsters with cats and a nice collection of degrees on their wall framed in mahogany, doing well in life. So you hear that narrative as well, too. Now, the caveat that I was mentioning when I was sort of reading through that is there might be a situation where you're a successful guy, you're in your 30s, you're doing very well, you're attractive, masculine, you know what you're doing, and you're looking to have a family, and you want to stay away from problem women with red flags, with a promiscuous sexual past. So you're going to date younger. That might be a situation where it's like, okay, she's younger, she hasn't really done anything with her life, but she wants to be a mom, she wants to be a complement to your life, she's embedded herself into your life and become useful and solve a lot of problems for you that allow you to level up and do more. I think in a scenario like that, and you'd have to structure it carefully. That's a completely different show. That's fine. You can take care of her and the kids and just run it that way. But for the vast majority of guys out there right now that are looking for a gal, for a girlfriend, for a wife, or something like that, you tend to be dating around your age, your demographic. And if that's what you're doing, you shouldn't be paying off her debt. You shouldn't be taking care of her problems. You shouldn't be, like, there's always these problems that would come up, Moff. There's so many. I remember this one gal, it's like in the first date, she's like, oh, the back of my car is all fucked up and somebody backed into it and I don't know how to fix it and I don't have the money for it. And like implying, can you pay to fix it and find somebody to do this for me, sort of thing. It's like, there's always one thing after the other. And it's like, if you're all so strong and independent women and you need a man like a fish needs a bicycle, then why are you asking me to fix your car? Right? Like, why are you asking me to pay for stuff like that? Don't invite broke women into your life with financial problems. It's a difficult, slippery slope because there's so many different levels, Moff. You got the younger gals that have nothing to show for it. You have the older gals that have somewhat of a career but have financial distress. You also have, the boss girls who are maybe on par with you, that might have a nice house, that might have a nice German car, sort of thing like that. So just be aware that her financial problems will become your financial problems. Her problems will become your problems. She will try to embed them onto you. So you have to be careful of that. That is a serious red flag because that can be very, very expensive for guys.
Yeah, this one was a huge one for me. I mean, being bad with money doesn't always equate to not having money, right? It's be spending it on dumb things and being broke as a result of your own choices. And also, and again, I say this with a grain of salt because we know in general that women don't like to share their pot of gold. But even in like hard times, even when it's, hey, I'm something might happen, something unforeseen may have happened, and now I may need you to pick up the slack. Like we're 6 for 6 guys on the New York City X. I mean, I already talked about before how she needed to go in with 2 other friends to live in a studio with a home office and turn it into a 3 bedroom. But this is the perception by saying, I get to live on XYZ, I get to live in the financial
In that
district, I get to
neighborhood.
live in
Yeah.
Manhattan, I get to live in this neighborhood. The perception of this, the
Did you guys live
idea that
together?
she was,
I
what's
think you
that?
did eventually, right?
We did event we started living together after about a year and a half of
Yeah.
dating. We started dating in August, and then a year and a half later, it was like March of 2020, and then that's right when COVID hit. So that was
Mm.
a whole mess within itself. But and I remember a couple of things in regard, but again, the stuff she would go out and spend her money on, always going out to eat, always going out with her friends and drinking to the bars and things like that. Even when we lived together, she would never wear the same outfit twice. She would buy outfits specifically for weekends in the Hamptons with the girls that she would never do anything with. I remember when we had broken up and we had finally get well, I'll tell that story and then I'll go back really quick. But I remember we had broken up. She had moved out and she lived at one of her girlfriend's places instead of with me, which thank God that's fine. But she would come home every couple of weeks to like pick up some clothes or do laundry, and she would come up with a dozen Amazon boxes of just clothes and shoes and just BS that she didn't need. And I remember her breaking down, even 6 months, 8 months before about how she didn't have the money to cover her LASIK surgery, or she didn't have the money to pay for XYZ or ABC or this and that.
Who paid for all that? Was that you?
No,
Or
I mean, I offered at one point. I had offered because I was making okay. I was making some okay money, and I remember even offering. I was like, "All right, I'll cover you and I'll give you a loan." And she was able to think I figure it out. I think her mom stepped in or something like that, or she put it on a credit card. I don't really remember, but I think what was really eye opening for me was the fact that. So I talked earlier about my job, my industry that I had had. I was in the sports industry. So if you guys didn't know anything about sports in the U.S. or even all over the world, like you couldn't attend any sports games, like tickets were basically useless, and I was in the sports ticketing industry. So I think April or so, or even May, my company basically cut every full-time worker's hours in half and turned everybody into part-time employees. So I went from making upwards of 85, 90K to half of that. And we were splitting the rent 50-50, and it was $1,500, $1,600 each for us, which was a lot. I doubled my rent. I was paying like $800 in New York for my own place, and we split the rent basically 50-50. And I remember there was no, and I never asked, but there was no inclination, no offer for her to say, "Hey, listen, I'll pick up the slack for the next couple of months, and maybe we can work out a payback plan. I'll chip in and maybe cover half of your half." And because we had separate bank accounts, like we didn't do that whole thing quite yet. And then even when I talked about renewing the lease or getting a 2 bedroom because I was going to be working from home, and having a second bedroom as a home office. She's like, well, I'm not going to pay any more in rent. If you want to get a 2 bedroom, then whatever the difference is, it's going to come out of your end, not mine. So, those were big moments where she
Mm.
was not willing to give up the clothes and the shoes or anything. It was actually a miracle. Like getting her to move out of Manhattan and across the water to Queens was a win within itself. But here's the deal. It was in a brand new high-rise building. It was the top floor. It had an amazing view of the city. I mean, not cheap. But I counted that as a win. I was like, oh wow, I can't believe she's willing to give up this bougie stuff. So that's how deep in I was. But yeah, I mean, if there's the fact that I spent 6 months doing part-time, dipping into savings, and there was no inclination whatsoever to, pick up the slack and I could work out something on the back end or yeah. So being stingy with money and not willing to contribute anything and um, yeah, major, major, major red flag and no good
Yeah, it's been said that a successful wealthy guy can change a broke woman's life, and they do often.
all the time.
But a successful wealthy woman will never look a broke man's way. unless it's for short-term fun and he just got out of jail with a little teardrop tattoo by his eye and his
I
motorcycle,
love those
right?
guys.
You know, then she'll spend the night with him, but nothing on a permanent basis. So, all right, guys, I really hope that you enjoyed that clip. If you want to check out the full-length podcast episode, you can find that right over here. Also, make sure you visit my website over here where you'll find my supplements, the opportunity to book me privately one-on-one for coaching, and most importantly, my new School of Unplugging, which you'll find on the courses tab. Newer to the channel, hit subscribe.